Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas. And we have wonderful people, and I'm so happy to have Ginny Jablonski back on the show. And today we're going to be talking about her main mission, and that is interspecies communication. So she's basically promoting the evolution of conscious interspecies relationships, and that's what we're going to get into today. So important for you to elaborate a little bit more on the topic of the evolution of conscious interspecies relationships. It's kind of a big words there, but we all know what that means. So we can talk to our dogs and cats and animals and horses, basically, right?
That's right. So one of my purposes is to encourage people to have a greater understanding of their animals, to connect at the heart level, to begin to definitely treat them as if they have a voice and a choice, as opposed to just a tool to get things done. And it's important, I think, from my perspective and the work that I have done and what I've been shown, to honor each individual animal. Many animals now are individuating out from the collective consciousness of the group soul for their breed. And they are on an individuated journey. And because they are so closely associated with humans, they are becoming affected by similar things to us. And that is emotion, judgment, unforgiveness. And it's a conversation that I think everyone should have in their life at some point, and more people are open to it now.
Wow. So you're talking about having a communication with your animals as well?
Yes.
And treating them as if they're, some people go, it's just a dog, or it's just a cat, or it's just, and some people have, I like to think it's not as common now, but, if you had a bad day at work, you come home and you kick the dog kind of thing, which is just really cruel. But, that's, of course, it's better, they do that to their kids sometimes too. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, being loving and creating a loving relationship with your animal, I would assume, would make it much easier to communicate with them. Is that true?
Yes. And, something else that makes it much easier to communicate with them is us remembering the truth of who we are, that we are infinite beings of light, and that we have the ability to heal ourselves and to activate our psychic gifts as we heal on our journey. And that telepathy, not only with one another as humans, together with animals, is a very real thing. It is absolutely real, and we can all do this.
Could you explain how you experience this communication with an animal? Say, for example, you're communicating with a horse. How does that occur?
Well, for me, it depends on the animal's level of consciousness and their openness to utilizing their psychic skills as to how they communicate.
Oh, wow.
Different people, different animal communicators will definitely answer this question differently for you, Gail. So if you've had other, and I know you have had other animal communicators on your show, there are some animal communicators who believe that animals only communicate through pictures, that they don't know words. And that myth has been dispelled by the thousands of videos on YouTube with animals using words to communicate, right? Pressing the buttons and, 20, 30, 40 different buttons, expanding their language. And I think some time ago, 20, 30 years ago, scientists said that dogs could learn up to 50 words. And I think that's just a myth that is going to be a thing of the past as well very soon. So there are, depending upon our human level of consciousness, depending upon our belief systems, depending upon our perspectives of animal consciousness, we will all perceive animal communication differently. So for me, for everybody, I think the foundational truth is there's no necessarily right way or wrong way, and there's no one way, that's for sure. Now, from my perspective, there is a way that we can communicate with an animal and violate their sovereignty. And unfortunately, it is a way that some people use to communicate with them, which is going into their memories and finding the memory that the human caretaker wants information on and pulling it out that way. So when I communicate with an animal has choice as to whether or not they want to answer questions. A lot of times humans, for example, will want to know, what was my horse or my dog's life before me? And I know something bad happened to them. What was it? Well, I had a horse once in Maryland, and I think this was probably 2018 or 2019. I'm not sure. And the horse lied to me and said its previous life was living with a cute little old lady who had a rocking chair on the back porch and flowers all around. And the woman said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not true. And I said, well, that's all the horse is showing me. And that night I went back to the hotel because I was on the East Coast. And the horse woke me up in the middle of the night and said, I have been compelled to tell you that I lied to you. She said, it doesn't, yeah, she said, it doesn't bother me at all that I lied to you, but the other horses around here are worried about your reputation. So they made me basically come forward, and I need to tell you that I have been untruthful. And I said, well, thank you. You know, it was like 4 a.m. Thank you so much for telling me this. Is there anything that you can tell me at all that will help your owner know that I really am talking to you now? Because I'm pretty sure she didn't trust, what we were saying yesterday. And the horse said, the only thing I can tell you is I want to live here forever. So I showed up. It happened to be a 200-acre ranch that was a sanctuary for horses. And so I was going back a second day. And the first thing, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I walked right up to the woman and I said, I'm so sorry. Your horse came to me in the night and admitted that it was not giving me the full story, the truth, and she said, oh, I thought so. And I said, I really wish you would have been more honest with me and we might have been able to dig deeper with the horse. But the truth is, if they don't want to talk about trauma, they shouldn't be made to talk about trauma. And she said, I totally understand. And so I told her that I had asked, is there anything I can say that will convince her that I was really talking to her horse now at 4 a.m? And so I explained that she said the only thing she could say is she wanted to live here forever. And the woman said, oh, you were definitely talking to my horse. And I said, well, how can you know that? Doesn't that seem like something any horse would say? And she said, I tell that mare every day that no matter what, she's going to live here forever. So it was the one thing that she actually verbalized to the horse every day. So I felt confident that it really was the horse talking to me and trying to bring clarity to the situation. So, a horse shouldn't have to lie, right? And an animal,
Right.
even as humans, we shouldn't have to lie to protect ourselves. We should be able to say, I don't feel comfortable talking about that, or that doesn't seem very important or very relevant to today's issues. Can we talk about something else? But these are communication skills we as humans can still develop.
Sometimes there's just a lack of respect and consideration.
Right. And so from my perspective, it is a violation of a horse's memory to just go into their mind and look at their memories, look at the pictures of their memories, and just choose whatever we see and to interpret that from a human perspective based on pictures in the mind. Pictures in the mind do not give context, emotion, or individuated personal experience. So much like me just meeting you, Gail, for the first time one day, I can't expect you to tell me your whole life story and explain everything you might say, or, vice versa for
Right, right.
myself. We have a limited amount of time to talk to one another, so we can't explain in totality our experience and what's really in our heart and why we really feel this way. We just don't have enough time. And oftentimes the animals don't either.
That's fascinating. Well, one of the things that fascinated me the most was when you said that the other animals in the collective, it's like the animals have a collective consciousness too.
Well, often, yes. Horses have herd consciousness. Within a herd of horses, there will be a lead mare, there will be a sentinel, there will be a stallion or a patriarchal gelding, and they have consciousness within the herd. And oftentimes the lead mare is really the gatekeeper for that energy. And physically, when I walk onto property in a pasture where there's more than one horse, such as the picture behind me, that's a 15-acre lot with almost 20 horses in it, I almost always, 99% of the time, will say, I have to talk to that black mare or that red mare or that gray mare first. And the person will always say, of course, that's the lead mare. Because they will tell me, you have to talk with me first. You have to get past me. And if they doubt my sincerity or my purpose, or my intention, they won't let anybody else communicate with me. And that's never happened to me, but I can imagine it would. It almost happened once. It almost happened, but I was able to figure out what was going on.
Wow, that's amazing. I find that very fascinating. Well, what about, if horses have herd mentality? I think cattle probably do as well. What about dogs or cats?
Well, I think we're conflating terms. So I don't believe horses have a herd mentality. They
Oh,
they
maybe I didn't.
they
Okay, what did you?
they can have a consciousness, an overarching consciousness of a herd as a spiritual or energetic protection for a herd, but each
Oh,
individual horse within the herd has its individuated consciousness.
oh, wow. And you mentioned that there's different levels of consciousness within like a herd of animals. Like one horse may be more evolved than another horse, much like humans. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. From my perspective, yes.
That's amazing. And how do you account for that? I mean, how do you think that occurs? What?
Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, some animals are an expression of a collective consciousness for that breed
Meat. Oh,
or that
okay.
species. Often it's more breed specific than a species.
Mm-hmm.
And many animals are souls who have grown beyond the collective consciousness of their species or
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
breed, and they have individuated and are on an evolutionary path, much the same as you or I as a soul are on an evolutionary path, although it's a little bit different. But it's unique for everyone because there are souls, human type souls, or let's call us ancient souls. Some people would call us angelic souls, right? Who have literally come from the future Earth to the past to incarnate now to ensure that this evolutionary process is successful, right? Well,
Wow.
some of these souls, some ancient souls, are actually in animals right now.
Wow. That's
And some,
fascinating.
yeah, and some animals are collective consciousness species souls or individuated souls who have graduated from plants to animals, nature spirits, and evolving into human type, third density, fourth density, fifth density consciousness, or dimensional consciousness within the density construct. So you can never assume that a horse is just a horse. Not in my experience. It's far more complicated than that.
That's fascinating. I definitely have seen what I might consider in the few horses that I've known in my life to see a real difference in, well, in their temperament and as well as their, I think it would amount to their evolved consciousness or lack of it, or lack thereof, I should say, depending
Well,
on. Go
and
ahead.
also trauma. And
Uh,
are there wounds, unhealed wounds, or limiting beliefs that they've taken on from humans or other animals about their own potential and possibility? And remember, we as humans ascribe a very low level of consciousness to animals. You yourself said so at the beginning of the
I've seen
interview,
it. I've seen
and
it
so
so
have
many
I.
times.
And so have I. So oftentimes an animal will think, well, I have no reason to doubt the fact that Gail knows what she's talking about. So if she says I'm stupid and dumb, I may as well be stupid and dumb, or dumb. And, a lot of animal behavior is based on trauma. It's based on being taken from their mother too
Mother.
soon, and that is rampant in the dog and horse community as well as cats. There
Cattle
are
too.
many traits, there are many things that we as children learn from our mothers, like boundaries and appropriate timing and unconditional love. Like a mother can scold you and sort of raise her voice and say, don't touch the stove, honey, that's very hot, you're going to get hurt, and then embrace you and love you unconditionally. So that's a healthy relationship where we know that even though our mother elevated their voice and we felt as if she was admonishing us, she still loves us. She didn't stop loving us because we did something wrong. And that is what is really missing right now from dogs, horses, and cats who are taken from their mother too young because they're not weaned. And the process, the natural process of let's say, as I said earlier, and we'll just keep it really simple, establishing boundaries. No, you can't feed, but I still love you. You're still part of my pack. You still sleep with me, right? I'm still keeping you safe. I need to tell you when it's safe to do this. When it's not time to play, I'm going to bark and tell you, calm down, little one. It's time to calm down, but you're still a part of the pack and I still love you. And there's this also, from my perspective, a telepathic conversation that goes on. You're a dog and this is what it means to be a dog, and you're living in domestication and you're going to go live with a nice man or a nice woman. So there's a lot more going on than meets the eye with mothers and babies.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because not only do they has this system of things um, messed up the human experience from mother and children in the hospital and so on, and not letting the baby bond with the mother and so on and so forth. But the things that we've done with animals are just as horrific. But with
Well,
this planet has a lot of healing to do.
yeah, since the 20s and all kinds of horrific experimentation in the 20s and the 50s and in the 60s and 70s. Yes, unfortunately, a lot of us did not perceive love, and we just needed that closeness, that bond, that reassurance. But I'm not a doctor or a psychologist or a child development expert, so I'm probably not the right one to even think about that or talk about that. But I do have a cute puppy story if you'd be open to a cute puppy story.
Sure. Why not? Let me just mention this thing. The thing I put up there was a spirit having a horse experience. It's kind
That's
of like
right.
how we say.
That's right. We're individuated spirits having human experience, and many animals are individuated souls or spirits having animal experiences.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
more people are willing to say, I think my dog when I was young came back in a dog, or I think my horse is a horse I had when I was young, but yet people aren't that ready to accept that animals have past lives. So if your dog can be a reincarnation of a dog you had before, then by virtue of that being true, your dog had a past life. So
Exactly,
animals,
exactly.
yeah.
We have a hard enough time getting humans to believe they had half past lives, let alone animals.
That's very
But
true. That's very true. And not every animal I talk with has issues with past lives, but because I believe in it, the percentage of clients that come to me with and pardon me for using this phrase, but with a higher perspective or with a broader cosmological perspective as animals and humans as souls, as infinite souls, those people do tend to find me because we tend to find the people that we need or who are an appropriate match or fit for us. But again, not every animal I've ever worked with has brought up past life issues. And sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times for me to meet with a dog or a horse before they bring up a past life. And I recently worked with a horse, and the second time I worked with him, he asked me, and he was a very expensive Grand Prix show jumping horse. And the second time I worked with him, he said, do you think my anxiety might have something to do with my genetic heritage? And I said, yeah, you're a genius. I think I have full body chills saying this. Yes, I think you're absolutely correct. And so even animals inherit epigenetic traits, right? Dr. Bruce Lipton, epigenetics. And
yeah,
it's
love that
very
guy.
true
Yeah.
for animals as well. And we can go off into many more esoteric conversations about that as well. But I'd like to share my puppy story if
Yes,
that.
please do. That should be fun.
So bear with me. It's going to start out slow. 4 weeks ago on Monday, my beloved rescue dog of 8 years, we had to euthanize her. She had stage 4 B cell lymphoma, and she had already had a prior surgery and removed tumors that had burst and were bleeding, and she was really in decline. It was time to let her go. So that night, it was June 13th, that night I went to sleep. And in the middle of the night, I was woken up to a little voice that said, I'm here. I'm here. And I said, who are you? And the voice said, I'm your new puppy. I'm your new puppy. I'm going to live with you. And I said, well, how do I find you? And he said, don't worry, I'll find you. So the next day, June 14th, this is just last month, I received a message from a friend of mine that I hadn't talked to in 3 or 4 years, because she relocated hundreds of miles away, and she's very busy. She just got out of medical school and has a grown daughter, and I have 2 children, and I run a ranch. So we hadn't spoken in a few years. And she messaged me and she said, my dog just gave birth to a litter, and I have 7 Labradoodle puppies available for
Oh,
adoption. Do you know
Labradoodles.
anybody that would be interested in these puppies? And I said, she sent 7 pictures of puppies. And I said, I think the one on the left, the blonde one, is the puppy that came to me last night in my sleep and told me he was going to live with me. And she said, Ginny, that puppy for 3 days, June 11th, 12th, and 13th. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, June 11th, 12th, and 13th. And she said, I've never talked to an animal before. I've never gotten visions from an animal before. And this puppy has been showing me pictures of living on a horse ranch, the fencing, and showing me, telling me that this is where he's going to live.
Oh
And
my
I said, well,
God.
and she said, I just went on your Facebook page and you just recently posted a picture of your pasture. And that's exactly the fencing that he's been showing me in the visions. So,
wow.
right. So I said, okay, well, I guess that's my dog. I'll come meet him in a week. He was only 7 weeks old then. So my husband and I went down to meet him. The story's a little bit longer with a little more detail, but for the sake of time for you today, I'll just make it brief. And
got time. Yeah.
I do have an interview with my friend, Dr. Lottie Valentin, where she and I tell the whole story in its entirety. If anybody's interested, it's on my website.
Oh, cool.
So my husband and I went down the following Saturday, and we went to the puppy pen, the puppy corral, and there were 7 puppies. And she opened the gate, and 6 of the 7 puppies came galloping out and just attacked my husband. And one puppy, who was a different color to the one that I was talking to, stayed in the puppy corral and sat and looked up at me and said, "Nobody wants me." And right away, I had this flash of, I think this dog is going to live with me. So I said, "Oh, honey, I'm sure." And her name actually happened to be Honey, but I didn't know it at the time. I said, "Oh, honey,
Amazing.
I'm sure somebody's going to want you." And my husband had really been devastated by the loss of our puppy. So I didn't want to push him into getting 2 dogs when he was still grieving the loss of our dog. This was really soon for us to go right into having another dog. We've not done it that way before, right? Where the very next day something is made available.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't really want to commit to anything because I was trying to be respectful of my husband and my husband's grief and my husband's process. So so she came out then, and we played with the puppies for about a half an hour, and it was time to put the puppies back in. And all 3 of us, my husband, myself, and my friend, Dr. Lottie, we all went into the puppy pen to get the puppies in. And as we went in, the one that I had been communicating with came over, sat at my feet, looked up at me, and said, "I choose you." And I said, "I choose you. You're my puppy. You're coming home with me in a few weeks." And he just turned around and went and laid down. And when he laid down, he laid his little head on the hindquarters of the little black dog Honey that had told me nobody wants me. So he laid his little head on the hind end of this other little dog. So Lottie was standing right in front of me. And I said, "That little dog talked to me." And she said, "Nobody wants her." And Lottie immediately responded to me, "Ginny," Frankie, who is my dog, who was the one that was talking to me, she said, "Frankie has also been showing me that dog is coming with him wherever he's going to live." So I got full body chills. So I say spontaneously, based on what she said, "Well, honey," and I hadn't been looking at my husband and calling my husband Honey at this point. "Well, honey, do you think we might go home with 2?" And I turned to look at him, and he exclaims, "Yes, it's happened before." And he was down on his knees with another little puppy, falling in love with this other little puppy who was looking up at him saying, "I choose you. You're my person." And he was saying, "I'm in love with her. I think we'll take her home."
Oh my
So,
goodness. Did you
so
go
in
home
my
with 3
mind,
dogs?
that's right. I thought, how are we going to we're in our 50s, we were running a ranch. How are we going to, handle 3 giant puppies? But it actually turned out that we got all 3. And it's a longer story, and it's available on my website. It's an interview with Dr. Lottie, and I think people will really like the full story. So, but we
Wow.
do have 3 giant Labradoodle puppies in our home right now as we speak.
Wow, that's fascinating. Someone asked a question back here that I wanted to bring up to you. You think animals can be NPCs, some of them. I'm not sure what does NPC stand for. That's what I'm not sure.
I have never heard that term either. And this is a very esoteric question, but
Mhm.
the answer is yes. There are some animals who, just like people, are at the effect of artificial intelligence, or who so I have a lot of experience with animals with extreme behavior problems because they went astral traveling in the night, and then an entity came into their body and is preventing their soul from fully coming back into their body. Again, Gail, this
Wow.
is a very esoteric question, but since
Wow.
it's perfect question, normally or usually in a public setting, when someone asks a question, it's beneficial for everyone. And if somebody
Yes.
doesn't believe it, then you can leave this part out, or you can discount everything I say. It's totally up to the individual.
Take what resonates and leave the
Right.
rest behind, and don't be judgmental.
Yeah.
So,
So based on that question, I can share several experiences that I've had. So horses and donkeys colicking because they astral travel in the night, and they get messed with in the astral realm, or they get lost because they go too far, or they're trying to follow their human and they don't come back in their body, and that will cause a colic. It can cause extreme disorientation. Astral traveling and trying to follow humans is very dangerous, especially most humans don't know what they're doing when they're astral traveling at night, let alone the animals
yeah,
going
really.
around following them, right? And
Not
we
something
don't.
we can train in.
Right. Well, nobody talks about it. And a lot of us aren't taught good spiritual hygiene and that type of thing. And then people completely discount the animals needing spiritual hygiene. And you see a lot of people including their animals in psychiatric setting. And I have many psychotherapists, counselors, clinical psychologists who have animals that take their dogs to work, and the animals can be harmed by an unregulated or unmanaged space, especially if the practitioner is using psilocybin mushrooms or MDMA or ayahuasca. If the level of consciousness is such that we can discern what is good, what is loving and benevolent, and what is, let's say, service to self or regressive energy, then that can create a lot of problems. And I have seen several dogs with attachments become quite ill and develop disease because of these type of attachments. So not only is your listener's question very important and relevant in my world, there are a lot of other corresponding conversations that we could have, but it would take hours and hours to just get most people up to speed to where we can have that conversation.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I've never even imagined that this applied. What we're talking about, which applies to humans, also applies to animals.
Yeah.
The
And
very thought of attachments or takeover of their sentient being. Wow.
yes. Yes. And I know people don't want to admit it. They don't want to talk about it. But a lot of what is happening in the world right now is because we cannot manage our own energy. And it is more often the case than not, when I work with animals, that the animals are not managing their own energy. And so many animals are afraid of where their next meal is going to come from. They've been abused or traumatized. They've been in shelters, et cetera. That they'll do anything to stay in the home they're in. So just like a child who begins to manage everybody's energy so they'll get dinner or people will love them, animals do the same thing. Well, let me take on their sadness, or let me take on their emotion, or let me take on their entity, so that the household can be somewhat regulated. And it just gets to the point where it spills over and nobody's managing their energy well at all. And we're seeing the effects of that in our world right now.
Wow. That's fascinating. And we really need to take better care of our animals on the planet than what we have. It's
Yes.
sad.
And the last show I was on with you, I shared a technique that I call the spiritual car wash.
Yes, I love it. A lot of
And
people
that
mention that. They like it a lot.
great. And that technique is available in a 6-minute video on my website under resources, free content. We can use that spiritual car wash for our animals as well. And so your listener, Shauna, says, when I do my daily intentions, I include my pets. The spiritual car wash can be used for pets too, because the spiritual car wash is for the outside surface of our auric field. I encourage everyone to seriously consider that each and every animal is a sentient being who should have free choice and a voice to consent, not just comply, to consent. And so, in my bubble, in my reality, what I perceive and what I share is that if we do energy work to an animal, we are violating their free will unless they have given consent, unless you have legitimately received consent. I have taken classes on the beginning of my journey with some people that teach different healing modalities for animals. And I've literally stopped the class. And this was years ago, like 2017. And I told the instructor, you do not have permission of this dog to work on this dog right now. And she and I got in a little argument and she said, yes, I do. And I said, well, tell me how you asked the animal. Well, when I was driving here, I told them all what we were going to do today. You want to repeat that for the class? You told them what you were going to do today? Did you receive permission? Did you connect to their energy? Did you use muscle testing? Because if you use muscle testing on this dog right now, he will tell you no. And if you ask him why, he will say he doesn't trust anybody outside of him because his old owner has a cord into his root chakra. And until the other person isn't manipulating his energy, he's not going to let anybody else do it. So you can do energy work all day long on many, many animals, and most of them won't receive it. So it's a giant waste of money, not to mention a huge violation of their sovereignty to do things to animals. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense to me, but who I can imagine people wouldn't have thought of that when it comes to animals. It's because we don't give them the respect and consideration that they deserve. Most people don't, because they just don't even think about it.
Well,
Really.
and they don't think about themselves as giving their power away to healers. And they don't think about themselves as being able to consent or comply. And they don't think about their own sovereignty and what healing really is and how it truly is a violation of our sovereignty to have somebody do psychic surgery on you. Right?
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm a purist, right? I believe that a healer is a teacher to help us remember that we, each and every one of us, are our own best healers. And we might need some guideposts. We might need some coaching. We might need some teaching to help us remember the truth of that and to help us with information on the way, give us, language, give us a different perspective, give us things to think about, and help each and every one of us tap into our discernment and receive messages for ourselves eventually. But to just continually allow people to pay money hand over fist, giving their power away, those types of people who are making money in this realm are those who will take your money and tell you that they can teach you how to heal animals when an animal has a sickness because it made a choice just like us. Just like us.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes people don't like to accept that responsibility. um, so that's thing. What is this? Anne has a question. Is it possible that my kitty is a fractal of my higher self?
It depends what her definition of higher self is. If she means monad or oversoul, then anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Fascinating. Okay. And I just thought I better put this one up here too. Ginny, you're awesome.
Thank you, Shauna.
Yeah, that's the you don't hear this type of information from just anyone. It's like you said, it's rather esoteric and it's unknown by many, many people. It's why we don't have probably more animal whisperers than we do. Um, so that's
Right.
amazing.
Well,
Um,
I mean, there are many, 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 many gifted animal communicators. And when I first was asked by the animals to apply what I had learned on my own healing journey to animals to help people understand that animals can be traumatized too, and animals do make judgments too, and that whole conversation, I thought, well, I'm not an animal communicator, so I better go take animal communication classes, even though when I woke up from my near-death experience, from my fourth near-death experience, I
wow.
could just perceive all consciousness, plants, animals, people, dead people, different dimensions, chakras, meridians, the nervous system, the trauma that's trapped in the nervous system. But I still, we all have this unworthiness or doubt, or there must be a right way and a wrong way, So I went to learn from several very well-known people in the United States. And one of them, because of religious beliefs, didn't believe that you could see dead people or talk to dead people or that animals had past lives. And one of them, because of her own just absolute trauma, didn't believe anybody else could be right except her. So she was very mean to all of her students, and one of them believed some things but not others, and it was all based on her opinion because she made it up in the 80s, so she made up her own thing and teaches it how she does it instead of helping to teach people to be the best you, Gail, you can be, or the best Shauna, or the best Anna, or the best Stephanie you can be, because we all have unique abilities. There's not enough of that going on in the world right now, that's for sure.
Really. Here's a
Could you put
quiz.
the one back about the dog trainer real quick? I'm so sorry.
About which one? The one I just
The
had
one
up?
the one you just put down, and then we'll come to this one.
I think it was this
It
one.
was so thank you, great info. I train dogs so I don't get good dogs. Normally always a problem dog. I rescue too. The rescue power
Power. Power breeds.
breeds can be most challenging. I would love to learn more. So the way I work with rescue animals is most likely dogs like this who have a lot of trauma. Number one, they were taken from their mother too soon. So the very first thing I do is I invite the oversoul of dog forward. And the second thing I do is, whether their mother is alive or dead, I invite the soul of the mother forward to communicate with them. You will see so many dogs go when that happens.
Wow.
Invite the oversoul of dog. So some people, earth shaman, might call that the overlighting deva of dogs, and then invite the soul of dog. And then one of the most important things I do is empower the dog to remember that they have free will choice. So I will show them my energy. I will say, look at my energy. Do you see the golden light of my heart? Watch how I can make it big just by breathing and intending, and expanding your heart light, and watch how I can make it small. Now, if I have a pain in my shoulder, watch me direct that light to my shoulder, right? And then I'll help the dog or the horse remember that they have that same golden light inside of them too. They, as an infinite soul, possess the same light of creation that you and I do. Their soul construct, their soul blueprint is going to be different. Their consciousness capability is different because they have gone through, to me, it's like going through a cloud and getting blue printed, like being printed by a 3D printer, right? They have a certain construct that they cannot grow beyond the blueprint of their creation unless they get permission from their oversoul, or the creator, or their own soul has to desire that, has to be ready for that. So they have to work within their parameters, but helping them remember that they have a golden light within them too. Now, Trauma is stored in animals and the nervous system the same way it is stored in humans. The mind,
Wow.
the body expresses what the mind has not yet processed. So the shock or trauma, they can disassociate, they can have fractured consciousness, and they can have pain in their body or issues in their body, especially excess parasites or ulcers and that type of thing, because they have so much trauma in their solar plexus. The solar plexus is the chakra that distributes all the energy in the body, the heart chakra, and that type of thing. So there's a lot, it's a very dense, very rich body of information. And there's not a lot of people talking about this, but I really hope that you can find someone to talk about this with. So then, Gail, there was another question that was really good next.
Let's see. Which this one? I think.
Do you believe some animals are familiars? I believe they are, and some humans can be. I don't know what you mean by familiar. So
I was wondering.
Having past lives with them. Yes, yes, and yes. It's interesting. I find a lot of animals come back in this life in order to complete prior contracts of obligation from past lives and be set free, so that when they die in this life, they're not stuck to the person again. You know, some people think, oh, it's so wonderful, my animal came back to be with me again. And it's really, they want to get away from us. They want to be individuated. They don't want to be attached. They don't want to be obligated. They entered into an agreement or a contract in a past life, and they really want out of it so they can go on and evolve. But we as humans, you know, we get so attached. We want to keep our animals here. When they die, we want them to be sitting on the bedstand next to us or whatever. But I actually have a story about that as well, Gail, if you have a few moments for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting enough, in 2018, I think it was like $6,000. I spent $6,000 to go to a quote unquote advanced animal communication course somewhere in Colorado. And I went there. And on the first day, the woman told me, you know, I've had people like you in my class and they never succeed, and I can never validate any of the information you get, and you probably won't come back at the end of the year. You're probably just going to fail. Well, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, I still had that wounded, fractured little girl part of me who just said, well, if I'm just good enough and sweet enough and kind enough and smart enough and just show her how accurate I can be, maybe she'll believe in me, right? So I stayed when I really should have said, thank you so much for saving me $6,000. See you later. You know, you're traumatized. But I stayed anyway. And it just got worse throughout the week. And in fact, it really got worse. And so the day I left, the day after, I stopped at a client's on the way home in Colorado. And I had the most magnificent experience with a horse who had a past life that I have ever had, even to date. The most phenomenal healing I've witnessed with a horse. And it was right on the heels of being told that I would never succeed. And what I was doing was an animal communication. So what happened was I was in a herd of about 30 horses, and I was about halfway done, maybe 3/4 of the way done. I sort of knew I had like 3 hours to spend. And this horse walked up to me and basically said, me next. And so I put my one hand on his withers and one hand on his heart. And I just went, whoa. And I looked at the woman and I said, if we don't do something today with this horse, in 30 days, he's going to die of congestive heart failure.
Wow.
And he just went, but really she looked stunned. And I'm like, why are you reacting like this? And she said, he was just surrendered by his owner, who's in hospice with congestive heart failure, who's going to die in 30 days.
Oh my God. That is amazing.
So I said, okay, let's check back in with the horse and let's ask why and let's see why. So I had my hand on the withers and the heart, and I saw a past life where the man and the horse were together, and the man was a man and the horse was a horse, and the man was in the military, and this was 400 or 500 years ago, kind of dark ages, Northern Europe, right? And the man died in battle, and the horse promised him, in the next life, I will protect you. In the next life, I will take a hit for you. I will take one for the team, right? So I said to the horse, do you want to die? This man is going to die anyway. Do you want to die, or do you want to release this? He said, I want to let it go. So I said, okay. So I had my hand there. So I was about to say to him, okay, this is how you're going to revoke your contract, because he's a soul and I have to telepathically communicate, and we say words to revoke agreements. And as soon as I start revoking the agreement, he steps backwards away from me and then really quickly walks across the pasture. So I said to him, what is that about? And he said, I can't. I promised I can't. So I,
this is almost making me misty-eyed.
Oh, and it should, and it should. And I will be honest, in my not so infinite wisdom, I probably could have handled it better, but I metaphorically got on my soapbox and yelled to the entire herd, have we suffered enough at the hands of humans? How many of us have agreed to martyr ourselves? And I'm speaking to every human out there right now too, who's listening. Have you suffered enough because of other people's energy, misdeeds, misunderstanding, unforgiveness, anger, resentment? Have we martyred ourselves enough? What have we not learned? This man is going to die anyway, and this horse is willing to die to meet an obligation that never should have been made. We have fallen so deeply into this dense reality that we believe that we are responsible for what's happening in the reality. I mean, humans really believe that, right? Mm-hmm. So I talked with the woman, and then there was a problem with the mare and a foal, and the foal wasn't behaving well. And another mare stepped up and said, oh, I'm really good at getting foals in line. So we took the foal from the natural biological mother and put this other mare in there. And all of a sudden the foal was like, whoo, can't mess around with this mare. So that was great. And I was about to leave. I was walking toward the exit. I was maybe 20, 30 yards from the exit. And all of a sudden the gray horse walks right in front of me. And I'm like, what's this about? I mean, 2 feet in front of me. And he says, I'm ready to release the contract now. So there's a picture of me on my website. I think it's one that's there maybe twice. In the photo gallery, it's within the first 20 photos. And it's a gray horse. And the gray horse's head is down, and my head is on the forehead of the horse. And I'm holding like the TMJ, the jaw, the mandible jaw with my fingers, and we're forehead to forehead. And it's a gray horse. That's the horse I'm talking about. So I just sat with him and telepathically communicated, and he revoked the agreement. And it's 4 or 5 years later now, and the horse is alive. The horse is alive. Oh my God.
I think I see that. I'm looking at your page right now, and I think I see the one you're talking about.
Well, it's the only one where I'm bending over forehead to forehead with the
forehead.
horse.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm wearing a blue long sleeve
shirt. Okay. Yeah, I got it then. Yeah, that's right near the top. Wow. That's awesome. That was a tearjerker story.
Let me tell you. And now, to be fair, there will be people who say, once you enter into an agreement, you enter into the agreement and you are eternally bound. And in my experience, that is not true. My soul says that's not true. Every soul I've ever talked to says that's not true. The oversouls say that's not true. That's what keeps us entangled in this dense three. That is one of the things that is keeping us entangled and attached and running in circles and running ourselves ragged in this dense 3D reality, is the unwillingness to admit we made a mistake. And a lot of times, if you go back, you'll find out that you entered into this agreement because of a misunderstanding. Like the horse thought in this battle, the man died because the horse didn't protect him. It was the horse's job to keep the man safe. Really? In war, in conscious human choice to go to war, it's one single horse's responsibility for the failure of success or success of an entire army and the death of a single, let alone a collective of humans? No way possible. Is that true? So when we enter into these agreements based on confusion, chaos, misunderstanding, being misled, belief systems, I think we've all heard by now how much belief systems are getting us in trouble.
Really,
right?
BS. Yeah. Belief system.
Right. Exactly. BS. I love it.
Wow. That was a very intuitive horse, as like Sage said. That all is so. That's an amazing story. It really is. I think something that came to my mind when you were telling me that story about a horse in battle is I saw some kind of documentary once, and it was covering about horses and how many horses die in battle or die. They're not used the way they used to be anymore.
Right.
But a horse, it will kill itself to save you. I mean, it will run until it drops.
Yes. Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
a rather noble and awesome thing. They really do. And when they say, they used to say even about becoming one with your horse, there's a lot of truth in that.
Well, there are so many different perspectives there. And don't get me started on equine guided education and equine therapeutic programs, because a lot of horses suffer from those programs.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
A lot of horses are not doing it based on consent. They're complying, they're shutting down, they're not managing their own energy. The burnout rate, and these are polls taken and studies done by actual organizations that certify people, psychologists and therapists in these organizations. They say that the burnout rate is anywhere from 3 to 18 months on average, and the assessment period is 3 months. So most horses should not be doing it. A horse who loves what they're doing, and a horse who is doing it ethically and managing their own energy and not healing the person, but providing a safe space, a heart-centered space, a coherent heart rhythm, right? A powerful, coherent heart rhythm space for a human to be within, this safe container, to be able to perceive its own soul, its own guides, its own discernment. We humans have really projected on to horses that the horse's job is to heal, and then the horse believes and they start healing and they burn out, get sick and die, or burn out in many other ways. And look, I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of these organizations across the country, and the people are horrified by what they're seeing. And the PhDs who are running the programs are unfeeling, uncaring, and there is no standard of care for the horses. But again, that's not what this program is about, and I apologize if I got a little off.
No. It's important information that we need to know, and it needs to be put out there. I don't apologize at all, because I know of I've been to those equine therapy sessions, and I wondered about that.
And a lot of the humans aren't using their discernment or their intuition. Everything, it's very subjective. It's what does the human perceive the horse's body language is saying. And some of the humans are traumatized and haven't done their own work, and they don't belong in that environment. I mean, I have people call me once a week. I just got out of equine coaching training, equine therapy training, and I'm traumatized by the way the human instructor treated me and the human instructor treated the horses. So there's a lot more going on, but it's not being publicly talked about because equine therapy programs are so celebrated, and many truly are effective, but at the expense of the horses.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I've done to horses that I think are horrific. I mean,
Right.
the way they trim the hooves of the um, what is, I can't think of the type of horse it is now. Um, I'm sure
You
you
mean
know
the soaring of the Pasafinos, or
no, it's another group of horses, but that's a problem too.
yeah.
Oh, why can't I think of the name of it? They're usually very beautiful horses, and they're kind of finicky. Not thoroughbred, but
The Arabs?
yeah, yes. What are they
Yeah.
called? Arabian horses. Yeah, there you
Mhm.
go. Thank you.
Yeah.
But they for shows and stuff like that, they do weird thing,
Yeah.
trimming their feet and so on. And then there's total abuse of thoroughbred horses and the
Yes.
racing and all that.
Yeah.
And then throwing them away when they're done using them. It's really
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess they even do that to dogs, like race dogs and stuff
Yes.
like that. Um, Humanity has a lot to account for with the animal kingdom in correcting wrongs that have been done, and
Right.
as we get to the new earth, um, I'm looking very much forward to being able to communicate directly with animals and even plants for that matter. But
Yeah.
that gets a little esoteric too, and people find it hard to believe, but it is what it is.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to the new earth.
Right.
And
As
that's,
am I.
yes. And I understand it's not too far away. You've
We'll
worked with a
see.
lot of awesome looking horses. Yeah. Hopefully we don't really know, do
Thank
we?
you, Gail. I only have a few more moments. Was there any particular question you wanted to ask that I didn't get to today, or?
I think we covered, we did cover everything that I had down already. And so unless there's another question, from the audience, but it doesn't look like there is at this time. And I
Okay.
think we covered a lot of really great information. And we could always do this again. And after a while, it's it's
Absolutely.
um, it's it's a it's a learning experience and journey for people to learn these things and to know that there are people out there who actually do see it and actually participate and know about the animal's consciousness, like yourself. And
Right.
just being out there and knowing about it and bringing it to people's attention, make them bring it under consideration and maybe treat their own animals better and with more respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, thank you, Jenny, so much for is there any last words that you want to say or anything?
Well, for people who want to connect with their animal, that's the spiritual car wash technique. And then on my website, under resources and free content, I have a process called Pink Pillows of Love. And I think your audience would just love it. So on my website, under resources and then free content, there's a video called Pink Pillows of Love. And it's I think it's only 6 or 8 minutes long. There's
Uh-huh.
a
I like short
15-minute
ones.
video that is called Intentions. And so if you do the intention first and set up your space and get into your heart, and then do the Pink Pillows of Love, after that, it will be very successful.
Oh, you know what? I did think of a question that I wanted to ask you, but we could save it for another time. But it's about, they say that cats um, are more interdimensional. It's like dogs are our physical protectors and cats are our spiritual protectors in a way. Have you
Mhm.
ever heard that, or can you comment on that at all? And then I'll let you go.
I have heard that. I do
Hmm.
not in any way profess to be a cat expert. I
Hmm.
have had some cat clients, and I have definitely talked to some cats who
Hmm.
are ancient oracle souls who
Oh, wow.
carry so much information about the history of the planet and animals. Um, I wouldn't paint all cats with the same brush, the same way I wouldn't paint all dogs or horses.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
would
Hmm.
say, generally speaking, that's it. What you're saying is true. But it's important for us not to project on any animal what we think about all animals to be true, because each
Yeah,
animal.
generalize.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, on that note, I want to thank you very much for coming on to the show. And maybe we will have you on again sometime where you can share some more of your fascinating stories. And please visit Ginny's website. We'll have it listed in the description of the video. And go to the different things that she mentioned, the pink pillows of love, and what was the other one? The intentions.
Yeah.
Intentions, and watch intentions first, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I think you will be pleased beyond measure. Everybody loved the spiritual car wash too. And so that's a great one too. And that's a short she has. I was going to cut that out of the video we did with her and put it up again, but she already has it done. And I didn't even realize that. So thank you for sharing that, Ginny.
You're welcome, Gail. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Always consider your animal as another human, only in animal form. Whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll stay. We'll stay.